All right, hello everyone. My name is Cassidy, and our moderator today will be Mr. Snyder himself. We're going to go over the attendance tool in Canvas. If you have questions, please type them in the Q&A, and Steve will get to those as soon as he can. If it's worth interrupting, if I miss something, he'll let me know. Otherwise, I'll answer your questions there. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so we can all look at that instead of my face. All right, so the attendance tool in Canvas is also called roll call, and it's an LTI that is built by instructor themselves. So it's integrated into our systems, and we do have it available for everyone at SMU to use. You'll always see it here in the navigation, attendance, and it's worth noting that the attendance tool by default is only available to be seen by instructors. So students can't see the attendance link over here on the left-hand side. So there's no reason to adjust your navigation, to hide it or anything like that. They can't see it anyways. The only way students can get to it is through grades, and I'll show you that a little later. So it's very important to note that the moment you click on the attendance link, it automatically creates a roll call assignment and puts that assignment in the gradebook. So if you don't want to use attendance and you're just curious, you should probably look at some videos or use it in a dev course, or you're here today, so that'll work. But the moment you click on it, it creates the assignment. It's important once the assignment is created, you'll see it show up in your assignments list. You should never change the name of the assignment or rename it or change the name. This can cause calculation errors. It can cause everything to get messed up with doing that. But you can edit the assignment a little bit to put in some directions or something like that. But you need to do all of this right away before you ever take attendance. Once you start taking attendance, you don't want to be editing this assignment. It can cause things to miss each other. So when you go into the assignment itself, it's already pre-set up to be worth 100 points and nothing's submitted. So if you want to edit, do it now before you ever take a roll. You can put in some directions for yourself here. If you don't want this to count towards the grade, you just want to keep it for record's sake, the best thing to do is check this box here that says don't count it towards the final grade. That's a way you can be assured that you'll keep a record, you'll keep a score, but you won't actually be counting it in any of the grade books for any of the students. You don't want to really mess with any of the other settings. The only thing that you should edit in here are the directions, a point value if you want to change it, and then if you don't want it to count towards the grade, check this box. So I'm going to go ahead and get out of this real quick. You can click on attendance tool, and this will bring you into the meat of what you'll be doing. Up here on the left, you'll notice I said it's also called roll call, so you'll see that up here. Here, if you have several sections listed in your course, you'll see them listed here, and you can switch sections. Even if your courses are cross-listed, you have to take roll on each section separately. You can't take roll call on everyone. It has to be on each one. Right now we're in list view, which is what you can see here. This is highlighted. You can change it to class view, which kind of puts it into like a grid. And this was originally designed so that you could drop the students onto this grid and create kind of a seating chart. If you have assigned seating, you can click the edit seating chart here, and you'll see a list of the students here, and you just grab them and drag them to where they're sitting in the classroom. When you're done editing, you go back to take attendance. If you're not using a seating chart, I mean, especially right now with a flex or maybe being all online, you really don't have a seating chart, then you can just switch back to list view here. You can see the date that you'll be taking attendance for here in the corner. You can rotate through days by clicking on the little arrows, or you can click on the calendar itself and pick the day that you want to take attendance for. So I'll pick last Thursday. and you can see everything changes depending on the day. The last thing up here is the settings. Now you do have one setting that you can do. Now this box here is a duplicate of the one I showed you when editing the assignment. So if you forgot to check it earlier, you can also check it here. This last part here is you have several options when you're marking someone and you're taking roll call. You can mark them as present, they'll get credit. You can mark them as absent, they won't get credit. Or you can mark them as late if they came into class late. And you can actually move this slider around to where you want that late to be. So if they come late to class, they only get 80%, right? Whereas if they show up on time to class, they get 100% for that day. So I'm going to close that out there. To take attendance in list view, you simply mark on the bubble what they are. So you have present, absent, late, or nothing. And you can just keep cycling through them. If you accidentally click one too many times, you can just go back around the circle. So I'm just going to mark a few. You'll also notice here that you can mark all as present. So if it's easier to just mark everybody as present and then go back and just mark the few that were missing, you can do that. So I'll mark everybody as present and then go back and say that person didn't show up and Masumi showed up late. And this is just for this day. So if you want to, when you trade days, if I go back to say Tuesday the 4th, you'll know it resets itself. And so then I can go through and mark people as present, absent, late, or nothing if I didn't recall, or that wasn't marked down. So as far as grading goes, present counts as they get 100%, late, because we set it at 80%, they get 80% of that day. And absent, of course, they get 0 for that day. And if you don't mark them at all, it doesn't get counted for or against them. So if you imagine that you have 18 weeks in a semester and you meet twice a week, then that means you have 36 opportunities to be present, late, or not, or absent. So every time you mark this, say this is the first day of class, then this person has a 1 out of 1, 100%. This person has a 0.8 out of 1, so they're at 80%. This person has a 0 out of 1, so they're at 0%. And that denominator, that over 1, because it's the first day of class, will keep adding up every time you take attendance. So if you're halfway through the semester and you've met 20 times, then the denominator in the math is 20. So if they've been to every class, they're 20 out of 20, and that gives them 100%. And the other thing to note is every time you take attendance, like the moment I click this, it's changing the gradebook. So once I mark them as absent, it now knows to add 1 to the gradebook, and it updates their score in the gradebook. So you don't have to go in and do the gradebook as well. Just marking the attendance does the calculation for you. So to switch sections, you just go up here to the top, pick a different section. Notice it changes days. So be careful with that. When you change sections, it'll go back to today. So if you're still marking something for the 4th, you've got to go back to the 4th for that section, mark them, and then go to the last section. I don't know how many sections you might have in your class. Notice again, it jumps to today. So I have to go back to the 4th and mark them as present or absent or late. So it's a good thing to stay up to date when you're using roll call, because changing sections will change the date. And sometimes if you're not paying attention, you'll be marking the wrong day. One of the last things to show here is the attendance report. You can pull out these reports and generate them. So you can do this at any time during the semester. You can pick your date range, or if you want the entire semester, you could choose like August 1st and then, all the way to December 31st. And that would obviously give you the entire term. But if you just want a week, you could do that too. So if I wanted to go from August 1st to August 8th, then I could pick out the week. If I don't put in a student's ID number, then I get the entire class, which is fine. I can always go look up that particular student. But if I wanted to pick out a particular student, this is where I'd put their ID number, and then the report would be that student for that time frame only. Again, if this is blank, it'll be all students in the class for that time frame. And of course, because your email address is listed right here, there's your clue that it'll actually be emailed to you directly instead of downloaded, because it does take a few minutes to generate this report, and then it'll get emailed to you and you'll have that for your records. Now, this information always stays here, so you can go and check it once a week, or you can check it mid semester, or of course you could check it at the end of the semester, whatever you might need. When you get the report, it's simply an Excel file. It's a CSV file that opens up, and it has a column where all the students' names are listed, and then it has columns across the top by date. So it would have, 8-1, 8-2, 8-3, 8-4, 8-5, 6, 7, 8, and then it would mark whether or not they were present or absent, or you didn't mark it at all, and then a total column at the end. So let me show you in the gradebook. It shows up as like a normal column, like any assignment would be, and you can see it here. And you can see their percentages here. So for example, someone who has 100%, they are 15 out of 15 if I've taken roll 15 times. And here you can see some people are absent, and like I said, absent late calculates in, and so you'll have a total score here. Now you don't have to share this with your students. You can always hide the grades, and that would be hidden from the students. But whether or not it actually counts towards their grade is whether or not you check that box to let it, in the beginning we talked about at the assignment. Now, students cannot see the attendance tool here listed in the navigation, but because if you count it towards their grade, it'll show up in their grades and they can see it there. So if I am looking at a particular student, and I'm just going to go and show you what my little fake student looks like. If I go into the course, you'll notice there's no attendance listed here. But if I go to my grades as the student, and I jump down to the roll call attendance grade, you'll get the normal submissions details page. But if you wait a minute, the little panda bear will generate here, and then you'll get, the student will see this graph about how there's been 19 days of attendance. They made 12 of them, they were there, 3 times they were late, 4 times they were absent. And they can actually see those days that were where you took attendance and what they were marked as. So it's actually a nice little graph and a nice little layout for the students to see exactly what their attendance has been like. Okay, so I'm just going to go back to the home page. Once you've taken attendance, even just once, you don't want to mess with the attendance assignment. Again, I'm just reiterating this because it's very important. If you change the name or change the points or anything like that, or even try and like unpublish it or delete the assignment, you try and do any of those things without assignment, it'll mess up all the calculations as far as the grades go. Even if you try and put it back the way it was, it'll take us some doing at the admin level to fix that stuff. So do all your edits before you actually start taking attendance. All right, so again, the attendance tool is simply an LTI tool that's built into Canvas that we have turned on at the upper levels, so you'll have access, everyone has access to this in every one of their classes. And it's up to you whether or not you take attendance and use this tool as your marker, whether or not you count it towards their final grade. And you can even, if you want to count it towards their final grade, you can, of course, can put that, like any normal assignment, into a weighted group. So it can be part of a participation group that you have. And you can put it in there and, make it worth a certain percentage of the grade. It doesn't have to be a lone grade by itself. And that is the basics of taking attendance in this tool It's a very simple tool. It's straightforward. It doesn't have a lot of bells and whistles, but it also doesn't mess up very easily. And it's great at keeping track of everything throughout the semester. So Steve, I know you've been monitoring the Q&A. Is there anything in there?
Can you look at the chat? There's a message from Lee. In the questions, there's an answer from Trina. I can read them out, but you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Someone says, I have a large and extra large section. I cannot call roll during the class time. Is there any other way students can check in? Can be checked in, I should say.
Yeah. So we have been looking at attendance tracking tools. We've been through 2 or 3 of them thus far, and we haven't had great results. Like when we use proximity kind of chips, those kind of things, because classrooms are so close to each other, they'll actually get students' locations from their phone from other rooms. So we're trying to narrow that down. We've tried using their cards, like they have to swipe when they come into a room. But again, at this point in time, you know, we can't do proximity, we can't do card chips because of the COVID and everything like that. We've tried looking for other programs where we could integrate into Canvas and they could check in themselves. But none of those tools have any kind of security on them that we found so far. So students could check others without a real big problem, or just send the code to their friend who's back at the dorm and they could check themselves in. There's no like proximity rule. So they could check in from anywhere in the world if they knew that, you know, they obviously know the class time. But as far as this particular tool, attendance roll call, this is the only way it works. There's no check-in, automatic check-in. The students can't check themselves in. When you have extra large sections, most people have, you know, before COVID still did it old school and passed around a piece of paper and then marked them all after the class. If you're doing Zoom sessions, if recorded Zoom sessions like we're doing now, should have a list of the attendees in them as well. So you could always mark the attendance after the class with the few that you have in person if you're doing flex, or just with the attendees list that is in the recording after the fact.
That answers one of the questions about Zoom. It can't be done automatically through Zoom though, right?
No.
Here's the one that's actually back a ways. What happens if you were to choose 0 points instead of 100?
You'll get calculation errors.
Okay.
It doesn't like that. So the best thing to do is leave it at 100 and just check the box that says do not count this towards the final grade. If you do 0, if you click on attendance and you go straight to the assignment and change the points to 0 before you take attendance, you should be okay. But you can't make once you set that point value, you can't change it again once you start taking attendance. So if you decide 3/4 of the way through the semester you actually want to count it, it's too late. It's a 0.
If you have someone that's absent, but you want to mark them as excused, well, she likes to track both.
Yeah, no, that's a good one.
Use the tags maybe?
Yeah, so what you would do is actually leave this circle blank because they're not actually present, they're not actually absent. What would you do is come over here to more, and underneath more you have some other options. And you can do, there are certain things, tags that we've already created at the admin level. You can create your own tags for your course level, but one of them we created is excused. So you can simply mark it and it'll add it as it'll be tagged onto their name and it'll show up in the report as a badge. But because you left it gray like this, they won't actually count for or against them, but you will have the tag if you export the report that you know that they were excused.
The badge doesn't affect the points though, does it at all?
It does not.
I didn't think so.
That's
it's just a fun fact.
Yeah, only these circles affect the point.
Okay.
Which also are represented here as present, absent, late, or nothing. So if someone's excused, you want to use the nothing and the excused tag. And that way it doesn't hurt them or give them credit.
Someone wants to know about weighting it, assignment groups, weighting. How do I give this X% of my grade, my final grade?
Okay. So in assignments, if you haven't already set up groups, you would create a group here. And basically these groups, the easiest way to explain it is, for example, I put all my assignments in one group, all my homework and all my quizzes are in one group, and then my midterm and final are in another group. And then you make those worth a certain percentage, you know, like maybe your writing assignments are worth 50% of the class because that's the bulk of the course. But that's the idea. So you set up these groups, and then when you're creating assignments, you can choose with a drop down what group you put these in. So when you create the attendance assignment, it automatically throws it into assignments, and you can put it wherever you want. So like inside the assignment itself, there's a drop down that says assignment groups. And so I can choose what assignment group to put it in. So I'm going to leave it in testing for now. And once I've got all my assignments in my groups, assignments and the 3 dots over here, I can set the percentages for the course. So I can say, okay, let me look at my weights. Here's all my weights. And I'm going to make this one 25% and this one 10% and so on and so forth. The key, of course, is to make sure it adds up to 100% for the grade. And then you click save. And you can also see them listed here, 15%, 25, 0. And you can have as many as 1 or as many as you want in a group. So you could have a single group specifically for attendance and weighted a certain percentage.
Tell us a little, what about participation grade versus attendance, or can they be one and the same?
Yeah, absolutely. This is up to your discretion. You can have attendance be a sole grade. You can have it can be also your sole participation grade that you take in, or you can make it part of a group called participation. So like if I wanted to name this participation and make it 10% of my total grade, I could have the attendance assignment in there. And then I could also create a fake assignment where I could assign points for general participation. And then that would all get added together as part of the final grade. So again, that's just totally up to you if you want to make it solely participation, one just for attendance, or if you want to combine it with some other information to give a participation grade.
What about the complexities of the flex classroom where you have some there, some not? And
yeah, definitely that makes it more complicated. For the students who are there in class, it can be as simple as quickly jotting down their names on a piece of paper. Up at the front, you just write down the names, and that way you have them. But the Zoom sessions should be recorded, and they should have the attendees listed in there, and you can look back at that later to get your attendee list. If you want to get the attendees list on the fly, like you want to mark it, let's say you start the class at, and you want to mark 15 minutes in, that's your attendee list. Inside the Zoom session, you can click on the attendees, and you'll see a list of them show up on the side of the screen, and you can take a screen capture of that and keep it for your records if you want to do that as well.
Here's a long question. If course or sections are merged for student interaction, will the attendance tool still work? For example, SMU grad students are enrolled in 6001, and 1 or 2 visiting scholars will be enrolled in 6011. However,
Sure.
These are the same course. Canvas, it appears to tell us about sections essentially.
So yeah, so basically when you cross list your sections, if you only have one section, you'll just see the section name listed here. If you have multiple sections, whether it's graduate or undergraduate, or it's just section 1, section 2 of the same class, you'll see them listed out here. you'll have to take roll call separately for each section, but you can certainly do that, and then they'll be listed out, and you just keep taking attendance until you're finished with all your sections. So for example, I have 3 sections built in this course. So you can see all 3 sections there. Again, the only thing I'll mention about sections and roll call is it always jumps to today's date when you switch sections. So if you're marking attendance for what happened last week, if you're a little behind, when you switch sections, make sure you change the date to match the date you're actually marking attendance for.
What about bonus points for perfect attendance? Can you get more than 100?
No, not through the tool itself. You can only get 100%.
Okay. Let's see, there's some questions I answered earlier. Let's see if there's anything that I may have missed. Well, we talked about the extra large sections, and well, we pretty much covered that.
So the best way to handle large classes is, instead of taking attendance of who's present, if you're looking, instead of marking them all one by one, the easiest way is to mark them all present and then just go back and mark the ones that were late or missing or you have no information for. It'd be much faster to mark the rest present than to do them all one by one.
I think I've covered all the questions.
Okay. Today was I figured it'd be a relatively short session, given the fact that this is just one simple LTI tool that just has some basic uses. It's nothing fancy, but it does exactly what it's supposed to do.
I'm sorry. There was a question about the badges again. She says, I've used them to track participation, but I've found I have to look at each individual student to track. Can these badges be used to calculate a participation grade, or is there a better way to use them? Well, you kind of touched on that, but can you go over it again?
Yeah, and like I said, this is a very simple tool. So when you mark someone is excused, for example, like this, and you don't count them present or absent, when you pull out the report, that's the only way you can see these badges. There's no way to assign a point value to them or anything like that. They're just more of a way for you to look back and see what happened with that student. If they participated well, or, it's a great way, like if they're hovering, they got that 79 or 78 points, and you go back and look at their attendance tool. And if they were there, the whole term, maybe sub one class, and they participated most of the time because you could see the badges, that's really what they're for, is to look back at things. But there's no way to assign any kind of value to them or anything like that.
If you're in the grade book, in the grade column, can you alter points there manually? I'm not sure why you would not.
Yeah, no, don't do that. That'll mess up the calculations for the future. When you're adding more when you're actually taking roll call at a later date, that'll completely mess with the calculations.
So the badges only show up in the report. Is that correct? She's not seen them before. Can you show us a report?
Well, I can't right now because sometimes it 10, 20 minutes to run a report.
Oh, right, to gen it up.
Yeah.
So do they appear in the reports?
Yeah, they do. They show up. To be honest, I've pulled individual reports and they show up. I don't know if they'll show up on the main report. Let me kick one out and we'll see if we can get it in time before today ends.
It's just for a single student? No, send it to. Okay, sorry about that.
Yeah. No, I left it open for all students, so we'll see. So we'll see if that report kicks out in the next couple of minutes.
It'll send a notice to your email. It won't show up here. Is that correct?
Correct. That is correct.
regarding the badges, if you're a part of the community, and if you're not a part of the community, you might join. You might look there and see if there are ideas that people have posed regarding this, and if so, vote it up. Canvas goes through those ideas and they use them
Right.
for,
Since we have a little
you
bit
know,
of time, I'll show you
right.
that.
And if someone hasn't posted, this would be a good feature that you could request.
So if you just Google Canvas Community and you go
There
here,
has been a lot of talk about upgrading this tool, hasn't there?
there has. Yep. So you can select what role you're in, and it kind of, caters more to just you in that instance. There is a ton of information in the community. Instructure themselves has hundreds of guides and things like that. If you post comments or questions in the community, not only will your fellow instructors or even admins of Canvas answer you, but Instructure themselves will come in and answer questions from time to time. So you can come in here. Knowledge base is the big one for finding guides on how to do things. If you pick like instructor,
See if there are any ideas marked for the attendance tool, just out of curiosity.
oh, the
Vote up, vote down sort of thing. Yeah, they've changed
Yeah.
it so much, I know.
yeah, they just recently
Lost.
changed this so that you can. It's supposed to make it more user friendly. It just changed this last week, actually.
Yeah, you have to sign in to do it though, right?
Yeah, you have to sign in. If you have a Canvas account, which you do because you're here at SMU, you can log into the community. So a report just came in. So that's one report. I'm going to run one more here in a second.
Is it a PDF file or does it take you somewhere in Canvas to show it to you?
It takes you to a place, but it just downloads it. It automatically downloads a CSV file. Okay, I'm going to run one more just to see. So
Yeah, Jim, you might explain the SSID, which is not a common thing for folks to use.
the student ID.
Right, well, I've never seen one that did not have 8 digits. You are talking about an SMU ID, not the actual Canvas ID. Is that true? Or did you just not add the leading zeros?
Both.
Oh,
So the ID number's here.
right. Well, the field that you'd filled in, maybe you just didn't put a valid number in there.
Yeah, I'm waiting for the report to show something. So I'll run like a couple of different reports and then I can show. So the Canvas community is a great place to look things up, as well as we're trying to mention that they have things you can vote up or vote down. So as people present ideas, like I'd love to have the ability for groups to be able to evaluate the people within the group as part of a group assignment. So it's sort of a peer evaluation within the group. So that becomes an idea in Canvas and the community, and people go in, and if they like that idea, they vote it up. And the more votes it gets, the more Instructure pays attention to the idea And eventually, if it gets enough votes, and it's you know, people want it enough, it gets on their roadmap, and then they start looking on how to integrate it, start doing research, and then they eventually will make it into Canvas. So actually, a lot of the things that we do now, the new parts of Canvas that come out have actually been from ideas from the public on how to make Canvas a little better.
If you look at the release notes, there'll be a little mark icon by ones then that it tells you if they're from ideas from other users.
But any other
One of the
questions we should be aware of?
The woman that asked the question about the badges says that she can see that information in individual student reports, I believe. I can see badges by individual student, but was hoping for a group report. I'll take a look in the community. You ran a group report just now, didn't you?
Yeah, so
Or
that's
one
the one
that has
that's the
multiple
only one that
students
came
in it.
through.
The one with multiple students. Okay.
Right.
To do that, you simply don't put an SSID in there, right? There it is.
Right. You leave the student field blank and it gets everybody. So you can come in and see, of course, this is your course and your course ID and the section name. And then you come over and you can see what's most important is down here at the end. You have the student name, the date of the class, and what they were marked as. And so you can see their information here.
But the badges or tags don't appear.
Not in this group report. The other one hasn't come back yet. So
That was what we were most interested in, I think.
well, if there's no other questions at this time, that's pretty much the gist of the tool.
Thank you, everybody, for coming.